Okay, well, hi everyone. My name is Sarah and I'm a veterinarian and a PhD, and I've been a member of DogRisk since 2019. And today I will present a study that we have done on the effect of a kibble versus a raw food on energy metabolism in dogs. And we haven't actually published this study yet, so you will be the first to see these results today. As we all know, dogs originate from wolves, and we have probably all asked ourselves if diets with a lot of carbs can really be good for dogs. So the raw meat-based diet is comparable with the classic ketogenic diet, which is high in fat, moderate in protein, and very low in carbohydrates. This type of diet aims to achieve something called a nutritional ketosis, which is a metabolic state where blood glucose levels or blood sugar is low and ketone bodies such as beta hydroxybutyrate are elevated and used as an energy source. However, it is still unknown how a raw diet affects dogs' energy metabolism in comparison to the traditional high-carb kibble diet. So therefore, the aim of this study was to compare the changes in energy metabolism biomarkers and body weight in staffies that were fed either a kibble diet or a raw food diet. So the study was a diet intervention study that included 46 staffies. We divided the dogs randomly into two groups, of which one was fed a kibble diet and the other was fed a raw food diet for about 4.5 months. So before and after the trial, also called at baseline and end, we analyzed the following biomarkers. Glucose, or the blood sugar, glycated hemoglobin, which shows the average blood sugar level over the past 2 to 3 months. Then insulin and glucagon, which are hormones from the pancreas that regulate the blood sugar level. Then triglycerides and cholesterol, which are different types of lipids or fats. The ketone body 3 or beta hydroxybutyrate, as well as 2 different markers of insulin resistance, the HOMA-IR and the TIC index. And we also looked at body weight in this study. And what we did then was that we compared all of these biomarkers between baseline and within both diet groups, so in the kibble group and in the raw group, to see what happened, and also in the 2 diet groups at baseline and end. Here you can see a flow chart that just shows which dogs were included or excluded in the study. So you can just see at the bottom there that we had 19 kibble-fed staffies and 27 raw-fed staffies that completed this study. And the 2 diets that we used was, as the kibble, we had the Hill's canine adult sensitive skin with chicken, and as the raw foods, we used 2 different raw foods from Mush Vaisto. So one was the pork, chicken, lamb, and the other one was the beef, turkey, salmon. And as you can see here, the macronutrient composition of these diet types is very different, with 45% carbs in the kibble and 0% carbs in the raw food. So what we could see when we compared the biomarkers at baseline and end, so before the dogs started their diet and at the end after 4.5 months, was that in the kibble group there was a significant increase in Glycated hemoglobin, so the long-term blood sugar, went up, total cholesterol went up, and body weight went up. And we also saw actually a small increase in ketone bodies, which I will talk more about later. The dogs that were fed raw food, then on the other hand, they had a larger increase in ketone bodies compared to the Kibble group. And we could also see significant decreases in blood sugar, glucagon, total cholesterol, and the TIG index, which was the insulin resistant index. So then when we looked at the end of the trial, we compared the two groups, so the one group that had been eating the kibble and the other that had been eating the raw food. Then we could see that the kibble-fed dogs had higher triglycerides, total cholesterol, and as well as the different types of cholesterol, HDL, LDL, and VLDL, compared to the raw-fed dogs. And we also saw that the raw-fed dogs had significantly lower glucagon and TIG index, as well as higher ketone bodies compared to the Kibble group. I was going to go through some discussion now on each of these findings. So regarding the blood sugar levels, we found that the long-term blood sugar increased then in the kibble-fed dogs and that the glucose levels decreased in the raw-fed dogs. And this could be explained by the fact that the kibble contained high amounts of rice and maize as main ingredients, which are fast-digesting starches that elevate the blood sugar rapidly, whereas the raw food contained 0% carbohydrates. And when there is a rapid increase in blood sugar, it leads to elevated insulin, which then in turn can stimulate something called lipogenesis, which is a process where sugars are converted into fats in the liver and fat tissue, and this then leads to increased fat deposition and weight gain. And we did find in this study that the kibble-fed dogs, they gained about 0.5 kilos, whereas the raw-fed dogs remained actually the same weight or even lost a bit of weight, even though it was not statistically significant, but still. However, we do need more studies on the effect of a kibble versus raw food diet on dogs' weight, which is why we are now actually planning to do a diet intervention study in obese dogs. Then the glucagon levels, we found that they decreased in the raw-fed dogs and were also significantly lower in the raw group compared to the kibble group at the end of the trial. So glucagon is a hormone secreted from the pancreas that increases the blood sugar level and prevents it from dropping too low. So it has like the opposite effect to insulin. And in humans, typically when humans eat a low-carb diet, glucagon will increase to like maintain the blood sugar level, which is logical. But what we saw in this study was the opposite, then that glucagon actually decreased in raw-fed dogs, and we don't really know the reason for this, but we have speculated that one potential reason could be that ketone bodies affected the glucagon secretion, which has been seen in rats. And another reason could be that dogs' glucose metabolism is simply different from that of humans. For example, it's been shown that dogs are more effective than humans at maintaining their blood sugar levels and their glucagon levels when they are fasting. cholesterol can originate from diet, yes, but it can also be synthesized in the liver when blood sugar and insulin levels are high. And what we found in our study was that the total cholesterol levels increased significantly in the Kibble-fed dogs and decreased in the raw-fed dogs. And at the end of the trial, the Kibble group had significantly higher total cholesterol levels as well as HDL, LDL, and VLDL compared to the raw group. And actually, 3 dogs in the Kibble group even went above the upper reference interval for cholesterol. So this is actually an interesting finding that really challenges the traditional view that fat is the bad guy. And our results also support several recent studies. For example, Boretti et al. Found, just like us, that dogs that were fed kibble had higher cholesterol compared to dogs fed a raw meat-based diet. And another study also found that dogs that were fed a higher carb diet had higher cholesterol compared to dogs fed a diet with less carbs and more protein and fiber. Also on the human side, it has been shown that carbohydrate-restricted diets, especially ketogenic diets, lead to decreased cholesterol levels. So future studies should look at whether high cholesterol levels in kibble-fed dogs have any negative health effects. Then triglycerides can also, just like cholesterol, be synthesized in the liver and fat tissue when blood sugar is high. So in our study, we found that the Kibble group had significantly higher triglyceride levels compared to the raw group at the end of the trial. And this supports a recent study also done by Algia et al., where dogs fed a Kibble diet had higher triglycerides compared to dogs fed raw or mildly cooked diets. Our finding also supports human studies, showing that higher carb intake was associated with elevated triglyceride levels and that ketogenic diets again decreased blood triglycerides when compared to the Western diet. Elevated triglyceride levels in dogs have been associated with several different diseases, such as insulin resistance, inflammation, obesity, diabetes, pancreatitis, hypothyroidism, and liver and gallbladder disease. And even though all dogs in our study had triglyceride levels within the reference interval, future studies should look at whether higher triglyceride levels in kibble-fed dogs could be associated with negative health effects. Getting out of breath. So the TIG index is quite interesting. It has never been used in a dog study before, but it's quite popular now in humans, and it's used like an index to show like how insulin resistant you are. And insulin resistance, it's like when you get an impaired response to insulin that leads to elevated blood sugar levels, and over time this can lead to diabetes. And what we saw was that the TIG index decreased significantly in the raw-fed dogs during the trial, and it was also lower in the raw compared to the Kibble group at the end. So this suggests an improved insulin sensitivity in the raw-fed dogs. And this has also been seen in humans that eat low-carb or ketogenic diets. So basically that you can tolerate carbs better, or that your metabolism is working better. For example, in humans, they did a 12-week diet intervention study where people ate a very low-carb, high-fat diet and this significantly decreased their TIG index, just like in what we saw in this study. However, since this is like a new thing, new biomarker in dogs, we can't really draw too much conclusions from this result, but we need more studies on this. Then to the ketone bodies. So we saw that the raw-fed dogs had significantly higher levels of ketone bodies compared to the Kibble-fed dogs at the end of the trial. And this is in line with a recent study done by Jackson, where vehicle dogs fed a high-fat, low-carb diet had higher ketone bodies compared to dogs fed high-carb or high-protein, low-carb diets. And the ketone level in their study was actually similar to what we found in our study. And then when they have looked at dogs that were fasting for 2 weeks, they got a much higher ketone body level. So our results suggest that feeding a raw diet results in a mild state of ketosis in dogs. So what we can conclude from these results is that a high-carb Kibble diet and a very low-carb raw diet had very different effects on the energy metabolism in dogs. And next, we need to study the potential effects that this could have on the dog's health.